Welcome to episode 50 of Tool Use. This is an incredibly special episode. It marks 1 full year of weekly conversations about the latest AI tools. Some amazing entrepreneurs, researchers, builders, and we're extremely lucky that 24 of them, of the top minds in the AI space, have decided to come back and share their top piece of advice that they've learned over the last year. We're diving into context engineering, mindset, practical tooling, and the human element. It's going to be the most informative episode of Tool Use yet, and is an absolute can't miss for anyone looking to leverage AI tools to become more productive, more efficient, and to amplify your impact. I'm thrilled to be joined by Ty Fiero. Ty, great to see you.
I'm so happy to be back, Mike. Thanks for having me. This is a very special episode. I can't believe it's been a year already.
Great to talk to you again, and man, just gonna dive right into it. The past year has been absolutely crazy in the AI space. What are some of your takeaways?
Oh man, it really has been crazy. It's crazy to think about like where we were at a year ago. It's so like I was thinking about today, I saw like 2023 as the date of a paper and I was like, oh, that wasn't too long ago. But then you think about it, it's like, oh, that's actually kind of a long time ago in the grand scheme of things. I mean, that was before reasoning models. We were before '01 at that point. And that to me, I think has been the biggest story of the last year. I think reasoning models took AI from where it was to where it is now. And I take '03 for granted now, but I mean, we were dealing with just GPT-4o back then, and now we have these incredible reasoning models that are winning math Olympiads and all sorts of crazy accomplishments. And so I'm hyped on reasoning agents. Obviously, they're going to keep going. I think another huge thing from the last year too is also just like local models and how far they've come. Just for fun, I just played with I had Ollama model installed from like I think a year and a half ago. Whenever Mixture of Experts was released, which is, I think over a year ago, and I tried it out, and it was just cute. I just smiled at it. I was like, oh, that's fun. But like considering how far things have gone now with Cohen and some of these other models, Nghiem, I'm just blown away with how far local models have come, and they progressed much, much, much faster than I could have predicted, and I'm super excited to see where they go next because the cost of intelligence really is going to zero, and I'm so here for it.
Even just earlier today, Freddie from Quotient AI shared out they have this 500 billion parameter model, 500 million, half a billion, and it specializes in just observing agent tool calls and the success rate with that. So we're starting to get these very small, hyper-specialized models. And if you look back, I was saying from the beginning, if we can get a well-orchestrated fleet of highly specialized models, we're going to get AGI distributed. So having these small little bits of functionality, being able to be finely tuned into a specific model, if we can just call it when it's needed, we don't necessarily need these massive O3-esque god tier models taking care of all the work. If we can just kind of delegate to smaller models, give your model a little pet model to handle little tasks, and all of a sudden you make things more energy efficient, you make it more cost efficient, and it's just going to distribute the capabilities to a lot more people.
What's also cool about that too is you're like, yeah, we don't need to use O3 for everything. We can use specialized small models, but what's really cool is we can use these bigger models use smaller models when they want to, like with Claude Code doing sub agents, it sends out little haiku agents to go do its thing. I think that's remarkable. And so like multi-agent systems this time last year were just kind of a thought, I mean, like there was frameworks around and whatever else, but they weren't really hitting the mainstream. But now you have Claude Code, which has taken the world by storm, actively using multi-agent architectures. And it's crazy to see all of that pan out.
You actually brought up something that a few guests have mentioned, and it's the frameworks, where a lot of the previous era of multi-agent frameworks were really just context management, deciding which model to send it to, sure, but the rest of it is just what context it's pulled in. And one trend, which gets addressed a lot in these conversations, is how prompt engineering has evolved into context engineering. Because prompt engineering isn't the right mindset, because you're not just thinking about the prompt, you're thinking about everything the model has. And controlling the context is important for every stage of the interaction. So it's not just, what's your super prompt to get things kicked off and started, but for every follow-up message in a conversation, if that's the workflow, you got to make sure that you manage the context there. So a lot of our guests actually talk about context engineering. So we can dive into that, but I'd love your thoughts on context engineering before we do.
I kind of always feel a little bit grateful for tool use in that the first time I heard context engineering as an actual term was right before Dex released 12-factor agents. We were recording with him, I think the week before he released 12-factor agents and really dove into context engineering. And for me, I don't think there's a better explanation of context engineering than 12-factor agents. 12-factor agents for me has been the biggest change in the way that I build AI applications in the last several months. I saw him at the AI Engineer World's Fair. He gave a great talk, which is on YouTube, about 12-factor agents. And own your context window, know what's going into your context window. I mean, like results from tool calls and things like that. Can you just take out the full messy tool call result and replace it with just a simple line in your system prompt? Man, that saves you a lot of tokens and makes it a lot less messy. And I think context engineering, I'm glad it gets the recognition it deserves, because prompt engineering always felt like this kind of flaky thing, and you'd have some people saying, well, prompt engineering won't matter in a couple years or whatever else. But context engineering, I think, will always matter. What you're putting into these models will always matter. So I think it's just such a profound change from prompt engineering to context engineering. And I'm just so happy that it's so talked about now.
We'll link 12-factor agents down below because it is a phenomenal read for everyone. If you're watching this content, you got to check it out. But let's go see what everyone else has to say about it.
So the thing that I've learned is that you have to obsess about context. So call yourself a context engineer, call yourself a context obsessive, whatever it is, context really, really matters. So take time to select the right files that you want your AI to know about. Take time to talk to the AI to tell it all the context. Just take time to give your AI the right context, and it will really unlock a lot more for you. So that's my lesson I've learned.
I think a lot of it boils down to garbage in, garbage out. So, like, I think these models are a useful way to think about them is as calculators for words. There's a lot of talk about like AGI and that stuff, and I'm open to AGI. I'm not like, there's a lot of people much smarter than me that are working on it. But I look around and I see what do we have now. It's not AGI, right? It's a useful way to think about it. I think it's a calculator for words. And so just like with a calculator, like if you're giving it the wrong inputs, it's going to give you the wrong outputs. And so I think when you're using large language models, you have to really think about, I think this notion of prompt engineering has been expanded, and now people are calling it context engineering. And that to me makes a lot of sense. You basically have to plan in advance, like what information do I need to give the model in order for it to produce what I want? And you have to think about it in terms of another level of abstraction, which is that it's not just about the next step. You have to think about it in a series of steps, because the whole conversation is the context. And so you need to engineer that context from start to finish. So I think you have to develop an intuition. I mean, this is the way I did it, right? It's like just trial and error to develop an intuition. And now that I have an intuition, I'm much better at it. But something I've discovered recently is that actually models are very good at creating those prompts for you. So before you start on your context, you can plan out what your context is going to look like with the model first, and say like, hey, I want to do this kind of thing. How should I approach this with a large language model? And they're actually really, really good at formulating them for you. And so, in fact, what I've been doing with Windsurf, for example, is, like for small things, I can just say, hey, I want you to do this, and it'll do it. But for much more complex features, what works much better is first going to ChatGPT and being like, hey, this is the feature I want to build. Here's sort of like the stack that we're using, like plan this out. And then once it's planned it out, then I tell, okay, now give me a prompt to Windsurf. And then I give that prompt to Windsurf, and then it does a much better job than if I just prompted it myself.
I think my top advice, my biggest insight is that however much you are doing meta prompting, you are not meta prompting enough. Like the frontier models will help you use the frontier models. And I'm just constantly building recursive loops of improvements to my system prompt, and getting whatever my favorite model is at the time to help me to manage its own context window and get like better and better work out of pretty much every model with pretty much every way of using them. Yeah. Metaprompt even more. Metaprompt your metaprompting.
So on top of just deciding what goes into the model and how you're actually interacting with these systems, it's really important that people consider how they approach AI in general. It's really a different beast than traditional software development or traditional computer use. So one of the biggest pieces of advice that I have for people is just stay curious. You have to have that drive to kind of see what else is out there and what's new. So finding something you're passionate about and an excitement really helps keep that curiosity alive, because as soon as you get stagnant, you're going to fall behind. There's never been a faster accelerating industry in human history. And this is one where if you can stay curious and stay a forever learner, you're really going to get ahead. So that's what I encourage people with mindset. What about you? What do you think a good mindset or strategy is for people to adopt?
I had two on this, and you just took my first one, which I love because I think it's the most important one. But curiosity is one word. I think the other word that I would use for it is to just play. I love the word play because it takes the stress out of it. You know, it's not like you shouldn't be going into building AI apps all the time with, deadlines and stress. Like, have fun, play with these things. These things can do incredible things. Like, I've been playing a little bit with Runway, and just playing with video mod. There's nothing that I'm really using it for, but it's just fun to play with, man. I just go and, kind of like Jason Neen does. He absolutely loves making his AI art, and I've kind of been inspired by that to just go and play with video models. And anyway, but go play if there's something that even looks fun. Just have a good time with it, and yeah, stay curious. The other piece that I will add, I think, my second piece point would be to stay optimistic. I think there's way too much doomerism in the field, and I think there's reason for it. I think it's not. Maybe some doomerism so that you can understand the risks. There are risks to this technology, but stay optimistic. I mean, there's that meme of the two guys on the train, one guy looking out over the valley and smiling, and the other guy like looking to the side and being all sad. They're on the same train and they're observing the same experiences, but they're just taking it in two different ways. And staying optimistic about the technology and seeing where it could play out and seeing how it could help humanity. It's just a way more fun mindset to be in. And I think if you stay in that sort of positive, curious, playful mentality with AI, you'll have a lot more fun, and I think you'll get a lot further.
It's important to build for the future, because if you build for today's tech, by the time you ship, you'll be obsolete. But bringing in that optimism, build for the future you want. Like, don't just build for the future that you think is going to happen, but we all have the ability to nudge and shape things just a little bit. So if there's a tool you want to build, think about the downstream effects, what it can actually lead to, and just build with the future in mind, because we're at a really cool pace. But you know what? Let's see what everyone else has to say about mindset.
Oh man. Okay, so this is so crazy because like I'm gonna tell you what my advice would have been like a couple weeks ago, and then I'm gonna tell you what it is now. And it's a little bit meta because with going through our whole thing of building a startup and building AI tools that like plugged in and like worked directly with all the frameworks, I realized that everybody that like was like serious developing and building products that were making money and were like, being deployed in the enterprise and were reliable and good. It was like, oh, there's not a lot of framework usage. Like most of the good founders I've seen would prefer to hand engineer every single detail of their pipeline and get into the whole thing. Everyone's talking about context engineering now. And so that was kind of like the more meta advice there is like, there's still a lot of engineering to be done. Try to ignore the hype as much as you can, because the way that I think Swix put it this way, and I really like it, was like the way the top 1% builds is so drastically different than the way the next 99% build. And so everything you hear is probably mostly hype. And if you're a good software engineer, but you don't know anything about AI, that's okay. And it might even be like good. And so like work from first principles and like to do software things, right? Test, orchestrate code, deploy things, like that all still matters. There's no magic bullet. Since then, I have, actually been using a lot of these like super agentic AIs, the things where I'm like, oh yeah, this is really hard to get working well. And like, you look at something like Claude Code, I think Claude Code is built 100% on the principles that are in 12-factor agents. And like, again, I didn't come up with those things. That's just like people building an AI for a long time, figure it out for themselves. The Devin guy from Cognition had a blog post about context engineering in mid-June that kind of like started this new wave where you had like Toby and Andre Karpathy all saying like, oh, actually, yeah, context engineering is a way better word than prompt engineering, because it's not just what you tell the model to do, it's like everything you give it. But I've actually been like writing less agents from scratch and doing a lot more of just like, can we take a coding CLI and use it in weird ways? Like I dropped it in a folder full of markdown files and said like, here's everything about my company, go help us make money. And it's like building little tools and scripts and pulling Zoom meetings and like building, like walking me through the OAuth flow so we can get my calendar events, and like storing all context is just markdown files on disk. All the RAG is just agentic RAG against like files and folders. Not super efficient probably, but like honestly, the thing that is like, oh yeah, just call tools over and over again doesn't really work that well. Maybe it kind of does now, depending if you know how to kind of prompt it and guide it, you can sometimes get that to work really, really well. And so my new meta advice is like, change your mind every 3 weeks, because this world changes so fast And like, yes, there's a lot of hype, and learn to ignore it, but also like, just because you have hard-won lessons, those may be irrelevant within a month. And so just constantly keep an open mind, and keep trying to do whatever the hardest thing is. New stuff will come out, and the thing that was hard a month ago is no longer hard. Go find the new hard thing, because that's how you find value in things that are interesting and fun to work on.
So the biggest lesson in the last year for me for working in AI tools is a lot about the mindset of the fact that the only constant is change, and that the rate of change for the underlying kind of foundation model capabilities keeps accelerating. It's very easy for skeptics to kind of look at a point in time and say something's not possible. AI agents writing code, working as part of a team, etc. But if you look back over the last 3, 6 months, a year or more, and look at what most people said at those kind of points of time of what's possible for the next few months, most were wrong in underestimating the change. So the main lesson to me is a bit of like the bitter lesson for AI agents and applications, which is that we should assume the underlying general models will keep improving significantly on both the cost and intelligence axes, and build tools and applications that take advantage of that general improvement rather than very specialized tools that are useful only because the current models aren't quite capable of something, be it better reasoning, context window sizes, what have you. And I think that that's something where sometimes, new YC startups, new tools you see kind of sound very optimistic, but many times they're not that far off, because I do think these kind of optimists who think about where things are going and kind of projecting ahead to what's going to be ready soon really are the ones that are going to kind of win in this new intelligence age. So if you're building agents or you're building tools that you're evaluating, you should really think a lot about how do you do that evaluation as you make improvements, and really look a lot at where are the failures happening. And if you find that there are failures happening in a specific point where you're doing a bunch of kind of patchwork to fix, that's probably a point where you can say, really make that call on like, do we need to be doing this right now? Or should we set this aside as something that we assume will improve over time, and we're going to keep coming back to this when new models come out and see if it's getting better. So if you see a bunch of failures are because of context windows maybe not quite big enough for your models, and you're like, oh, well, this probably would work if we had had everything in context. Should I go and do the work to build this really specialized RAG system? Maybe if it's important to your customers right now. But you should also be aware that you probably want to retest this in the future without that system. You want to kind of do ablation studies in some sense in the future. You want to be able to turn off and on these specialized things that you might add just to solve a particular problem, and decide if this is something that really, as you tear it out, as new models come in, can you keep your code base simpler? Can you keep what you're doing more generalized?
The biggest lesson for me was to focus a lot on building around AI so that your product improves around AI releases and AI models. So for me last year, I was working on a product called Magic UI, and it didn't have AI built in to improve. And I noticed that I was actually exponentially getting worse relative to other products in a way. So going forward, I think of AI and LLMs as sort of a generator. So for Refract, what I'm doing right now is I built a system around LLM generation so that every subsequent generation, the system becomes better. It's like a self-improving system. So when someone creates a new video, what happens is that they can also like vote and like say this is a good output, this is a bad output, and that's stored. And what happens with that is that every subsequent like new generation or new chat, the AI agent that I have looks at the previous data set, sees which things were better, which things were worse, and the system becomes better over time. And this is what I mean by building a product around the properties of AI, which are very, very powerful. And for me, that's the one property that I'm focusing on is a generator property. Yeah, and I'll definitely focus a lot on that in particular, because if you're not aligned with this, you will be left behind, because the only people who will be building their products that get better with every new model release, every new chat, every new generation.
The biggest lesson that I've learned working with a bunch of different tools, building tools, has been just to remember to not always believe in the magic, and to chip away at it. I think now is the easiest time to understand how things work. If you want to understand a code base, you could take the code base, drop it into an LLM, and just ask hey, how does this feature work? or how is this feature implemented? Give me a basic rundown implementation of this. Or if you want to understand, like, you can just basically convert anything to Markdown or text, and you can start to build an understanding for yourself. And then I actually think that helps build a lot of internal confidence that you can keep building something great. Or that, like, maybe the tools aren't as magical as you think. For me, the things I'm always thinking about are, what would I actually use this for? And then beyond that, like, how does it relate to what I might do in the future? And I think if you can kind of contrast those things, and you're thinking about the present and you're also thinking about the future, that's how you can kind of start to bend things in different ways and see, like, do things really hold up?
I used to believe that to benefit from AI and use it effectively, one had to be better than the AI, at least in the area where it's applied. I've since realized you don't need to be better than the AI to benefit from it. It depends on how you use it. Mindset matters, particularly curiosity, motivation, and healthy skepticism. In the right hands, AI can be more than just a tool, it becomes a teacher. AI can be more like rather weird, actually, coworker than just a mere tool, although it's not and shouldn't be considered a person. Its adoption has been more successful among those using personalized assistants. Trekkie enjoyed interacting with Picard. Another colleague preferred an assistant speaking in her regional dialect, and so on. When AI is not only useful, but also fun, users are more likely to incorporate it into their daily lives. While this approach isn't for everyone, the key takeaway is adapt AI to the user to make the user adopt AI. A lesson I learned from The Matrix: never send a human to do a machine's job. H.L. Smith said that, and I think he's right, because similarly, you don't use a language model for tasks that a simple program can handle. So automate deterministically with code whenever possible, and reserve AI for situations where it's truly needed. This approach enhances consistency, reliability, performance, and cost efficiency.
I think the biggest lesson is just things move so fast that you can't really take any firm lessons. Like, I don't know, everything's like changing all the time. Like, it used to be that they were just kind of good for chatting. Like, you could ask a question and get an answer, and the answer could be pretty good, but you kind of had to like test it, and you couldn't like run them in a loop. They'd go crazy. And like the agent stuff didn't work at all, like even just a year ago. But now they're pretty good. Like, I think like there's lots of PRs that Mentat makes that we merge without any changes at all, and there's lots of people providing that kind of experience between like Codex and Claude Code. So like almost any lesson you learned a year ago is like kind of now obsolete in a way. And I guess, I don't know, my prediction is that will continue, and that things will get like even better. And I don't know, my biggest sense of the last couple weeks and months is like, I am the bottleneck, where I'll like have ideas and I'll fire them off. And the limiting factor is like actually my ability to even like look at the code. The code's like, that it generates is like not even the bottleneck anymore.
So I think the number one is being aware of the outcome you're expecting from the tool. Whether it's when you're building an AI tool or when you're using an AI tool, you can do so many things that technically you can easily end up like in the loop where you're starting like to prompt, and then you end up with something, and then you keep prompting. And at the end, you don't necessarily neither know how to stop or what really you were looking for. So you always have like kind of this dissatisfaction, basically. So I'll give you an example. Right now I'm trying like to work a little bit on the brand of the company. So I started like iterating with open art and, you know, image generation tools like that. And at the beginning, I ended up like using this for 2-3 hours without like ending up with anything constructive. And when I posed at the end, I was like, okay, but what was I looking for? You know, because you start with like a prompt idea, but if you don't really understand where you want to go, it's really hard, you know, to end up with something you're really satisfied about.
Outside of just the mindset, I think it's really important to talk about like the practical application. Like, things can get a little theoretical, esoteric, but pulling it back down for today, what are some things that you think are really important principles that people should keep in mind when they're building these tools or using these tools, that's a takeaway that someone could benefit from like right now?
I think the thing that I'd say off the top for vibe coding or like building applications is just to like make it as easy as possible for the AI to actually be in the feedback loop to try things and test things. Because there's a lot of work that you can have Claude do, or I mean Claude Code. Claude Code's the thing now. Who knows what happens when the next model comes out or whatever. But give it linting tools, set up linters in your code base, set up tests, set up like if it can actually run the application and try it and see if it worked for itself. Like get yourself out of that loop as much as possible if you're going true vibe coding style. Just like feedback loops are so important, and if you can create that feedback loop, that kind of plays into evals as well too. I think evals are dramatically important. Just to see if you're actually doing the thing that you want to do. What's your definition of good look like? I absolutely love that. Just like optimize for the feedback loop.
I would say I recommend people try to use code as much as possible, where if you can take the LLM out of the workflow and have deterministic code there, it's cheaper, it's faster, it's more reliable, and have the LLM be that fuzzy function that's kind of bridging two processes together or taking an unknown input and making it something that you can work with. And then also there's no lasting best practices yet. We're still figuring things out. So be agile. Like don't construct your product or your app in such a way that it becomes inflexible because you want to adhere to certain principles in this day and age, because everything's changing so quickly. We're still figuring out how to do this as an entire industry, that the ability to stay agile and be willing to throw away a bunch of code to bring in new code is going to help you accelerate.
Another point that I want to throw in here too, another shout out to 12-factor agents, is like own your control flow. I think that's super important. And he mentioned it in his talk too, but it's kind of a request for some of these agent frameworks to just expose more of the control flow to people. But man, you can, when you actually build an agent from first principles, you kind of realize how much those agent frameworks are holding away from you. And being able to control your control flow gives you a lot of leverage that one might not have if you're building with an off-the-shelf framework.
Let's see what everyone else has to say about practical development and tooling.
Two big trends I've been seeing. One is people using WhatsApp as a universal chat interface for building products. I think that is extremely useful for two reasons. Basically, first, it has virtually no limits to what you can build in WhatsApp, at least in terms of agents. You have also some components in WhatsApp that are very handy, like forms and other stuff. But the big thing is like it's very easy to build in WhatsApp custom agents for a specific use case or general agents for a general use case. It depends on what product people want to build, but I'm seeing a lot of that here in South America. And the other thing that's very big for WhatsApp, a big plus, is that people have like no switching cost or like onboarding cost for WhatsApp. They don't need to download anything. They don't need to learn any new behavior. They use it every day for every single thing. They will order food through WhatsApp, talk to their friends, talk to their family, and just add a new number where they have like their gym assistant or their task assistant or whatever. So we have a lot of development of new startups that are WhatsApp native here, deploying AI at scale in WhatsApp. That's one big trend. The other second thing I'm seeing a lot, which I find extremely interesting, is how human beings fit into the LLM native organization. So these types of organizations that really leverage LLMs in the whole transversal functioning of the company in the post-LLM world. And I see it happening two ways. So one way is obviously building a good data flywheel that translates user needs into features and into AI features if you have a deployed agent and delivers that as value to clients. So that you need AI engineers there, obviously. You also have designers that interpret what users are needing and build convenient UIs that fit the user's needs. And also like you can use vZero and Lovable or Replit in those cases to build great UIs, but there's a deep component of understanding the user and being tasteful about it. But these automation and design, all these aspects of the product that you build internally need to be guided by a deep understanding of the end user, which you only get by talking to users. And that's what I find fascinating, is that many startups that are doing great work in building custom bespoke products for very niche markets talk a lot to users and feel they can feel the way that the user feels in their daily workflows, in their daily day-to-day activities. And that's how they get the right intuitions to that feed into features and design. So it's a very soft skill that with AI you can leverage to a much greater degree than you could before. But it's still a soft skill. So it's a place where humans shine, of being very close to users and having, daily to weekly conversations on how they're using the product, what they're needing, what they're seeing is missing, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, WhatsApp and really leveraging humans with LLMs, that's basically the biggest trends I'm seeing.
Last year was, I would say, the AI engineering became more standardized. So before, like a year ago, we didn't know what to do. Like everyone has different ideas, but now we have some standardized axioms. For example, you have to do eval. You have to start from eval, and then run the eval, and then tweak the prompt, improve the system gradually. Or when you do eval, you have to create your own annotation tool, because if you rely on third-party annotation tool, it wouldn't support your data types, or you might find you want certain features but it's not there. In terms of tracing, we got much better tools. I'm using Langsmith, but there are a bunch of tools that supports tracing. And people realize that tracing is important because when something goes wrong, you have to look into the model. So it's much easier to look into what went wrong, how the model is processing the data, and so on. And lastly, I think it's a recent lesson, but people are more aware of context management or context engineering. So in the beginning, people didn't look at the data, so they just had a hunch why the agent is not working. But now they're looking at the data and then see all the traces, and they realize that, okay, I misput the context here. So managing the context is important. I should not put everything in the message history. I have to digest it in a simple message and then let LLM to do. So that's three things that I think got more standardized, like eval, tracing, and context management.
The biggest thing has been to realize that don't be too smart about scaffolding things to patch how models work today, and just kind of do the brute force stuff first, because sometimes the brute force stuff actually works way better than my scaffolding. An example for that would be, I used to do a lot of RAG, like heavy chunking and stuff like that. And now what I normally do is actually I do agentic search, and then I just pass a lot of context into the model. And we're talking about frontier models here. If you're working with a smaller model, obviously you have to still, do a bunch of stuff with the instructor, library and stuff like that to get stuff to work at a certain standard. But if you're working with frontier models, try the brute force stuff work first. It usually works pretty well. So that's my biggest takeaway, which is that models have gotten to a point where it's so good that a lot of stuff that I learned from a year ago, now they aren't that useful anymore. Like memory truncating, summarization, all that stuff. You can just, most use cases, you just stuff all of that in. And you've seen that with Claude Code versus Cursor, where Cursor truncates a bunch of stuff, right? But Claude Code, just let it run. Obviously, it's more expensive, but you get really good results. Being able to use a vibe coding tool, I think turns out to be a huge advantage. So if you're somebody who has good taste, you can go on V0, you can get better results than I do, because you know what you're looking for. And yeah, vibe coding is not bad. It's great when you're trying to put ideas down on something concrete. And I used to be I used to be kind of against using those tools a little bit, but that was just because I realized that, I didn't have good ideas. But once I have an idea of what I want, and then I want to get there faster, oh man, I'm just gonna go on Figma, make V0, just bang it out, and then think like a PM as opposed to thinking as a developer. I found that to be super useful for people like ourselves who are founders, who run small teams, because you can't be building products in the developer mode all the time. You have to be kind of thinking about the features and product side of things while you're scoping out things and designing things, and then you shift into developer mode and you build out stuff. Because a lot of times in the past I just kind of built and I didn't have a plan, but that was because planning and designing and mocking up things would have taken too long. So now embracing vibe coding tools is like my new thing. So I use that to help my planning, help my feature like roadmap and stuff like that. So changed my mind about that recently.
Since we last talked, I've been exposed to like a lot of the different tools, both, playing with them myself and like watching other people. And it's pretty interesting, like seeing the different kind of workflows and like what people optimize for. And so I think there's like a few groups that, drive people to use the tools and like what they use them for and this kind of thing. So part of it I would say is like the micro interaction type of optimization, micro interaction with AI, which is kind of a year ago, I would call it the Copilot, right? To be clear, the GitHub Copilot. And it's the like autocomplete. And I think like Windsurf does that pretty well. People who really want that like autocomplete behavior, Windsurf is good at like, oh, let me change this variable name. And then it like kind of says, oh, do you want to like change it in all these other places too? And you're like, yeah, that looks good. Or like you delete some stuff and it's like, oh, well, you just like deleted, this use of a function and now that's a dead function. So you might as well delete it too, right? So it just kind of like anticipates, what you just did and what you might want to do next. So I would say that's like a pattern. And then there's this camp of like, I'm doing this task. I need to do this thing. It's basically a ticket. And here's how I want to do it. Can you go do it for me? And this is the cursors. This is the Claude code. This is the codex. And this is, you are instructing this thing to make a series of changes to a series of files. They are very good at tool use. They know how to search and find things. You can give it context that you want to, this kind of thing. So I use that like day to day. I use Claude code. The IDE integration is super naive, but it's a nice to have. Basically, all it is like apply this diff, and you're like, yeah, apply this diff, and you can like undo and stuff. So it's like you don't have to do it entirely in terminal anymore, but it's nothing crazy, right? There's no like great LSP integrations or like anything like this yet. But it's useful. You can definitely save time. You can do things in that way. And so the kind of third camp, because I mentioned there was three, is this other thing you can do now, which is pretty interesting, that I think is growing faster and faster, and people are going to be doing it more and more, which is like you can now build purpose-built personal software at a cadence that you really couldn't before. And so I've done things where it's like, oh, I need to do this thing. It would be nice if I had this tool. I'm going to build that tool to help me do this thing. Like instead of trying to directly do the thing. And maybe that's like a script, right? Maybe it's like that would be the simplest case is like, hey, I need to complete this task. Instead of like asking an AI, which is like an agent or a computer use or a whatever it is to like do a task for you. It's much, much, much easier to be like, write this bash script that like does that thing. And then you run the bash script, right? And that has the other really nice benefit of like, you can tweak it manually or ask it to tweak it manually. And what you're effectively doing is like, you're working on the plan and then executing it rather than like saying, okay, go off and do this thing. And now like, oh, you didn't do it quite right. And so I think we're going to be seeing that like a lot more is like this idea that you can actually do purpose-built things and purpose-built tasks.
When you build an AI-based application, first ask yourself a question. Am I actually solving a real product or a process problem? Or am I perfectly fine in the deterministic, rule-based world, and I'm just doing it for entertainment's sake or for intellectual curiosity's sake? So first things first, can I do it locally? Do I really need to tap into third-party models or raise llama or fine-tune? And that's one lesson that we learned internally. Like, for instance, we are, a lot of times we can actually get by with the previous generation, like fine-tuned Roberta, and don't even need to go into the latest generation of large language models. There's still a lot of good old things within older previous generation libraries, and those open source communities are still very much alive and kicking. So do it when you see that it will really be solving your actual problem that you have. When you get awesome results with a larger model, see if you can get better results with smaller purpose-built model. With some tricks and tips, you can actually get the same output for much less money, much faster inference, and actually purpose-built. Models fine-tuned for a purpose of your specific domain and your specific task are definitely going to perform much better just because that's what they're for.
Prompt engineering is still really important. If you don't know how to write a good prompt, no matter which tool you use, whether it's like Claude Code, Gemini CLI, LangChain, like whatever you use, like it doesn't matter. Like you're not gonna get a good result. And I see this on a daily basis. I help people with, writing prompt for their agents. They want to build agents on Toolhouse or on like Mathstra.ai, the TypeScript framework. And it's just like, it doesn't do what you expect it to do. And so prompt engineering is still number one concern that I think humanity has to like learn. When you're a good prompt engineer, you will unlock a lot of capabilities in terms of what the model can do, which otherwise you are not going to get.
The one thing that I just really want to touch on is it's important for us to keep in mind that we're not looking to replace humans with AI. We want to augment, want to empower, want to uplift. And a lot of people fear AI because they don't understand that that's the main trajectory. They view short-term impacts, first-order impacts as a negative, and then just kind of get turned off the whole idea. But when they take a step back and they view it as something that is a tool that can help enhance people, enhance things like medical tech, clean tech, we can actually improve human health and world health with AI. It's just about the way that we handle the tool. So I really hope people keep in mind that this industry is going to have an amazing impact on humans and the productivity we can have, the amount of drudgery we can eliminate, and the amount of suffering we can reduce. So I really hope that keeping the human element in mind and that we're working to make people better, allowing people to make themselves better is something that is a main objective.
It's becoming increasingly clear that humans aren't going anywhere in the loop, so to speak. Like human in the loop, we talk about it a lot as this kind of like, new-ish paradigm we talk about with agents. But I think it's something that is becoming increasingly clear from ChatGPT's agent mode, Claude Code. You can't just have these things go fully autonomous. They will mess up. We need humans in the loop right now. And build your product or build your service or build whatever it is with humans in mind to give them the control to see what's going on the inside, to be able to control what's going on in the inside. And also, I think we've talked about this a lot of times, but like meet your users where they're at. Not everything needs to be a new web app, Slack bots, Telegram apps. Like there's some great UIs for AI that aren't UIs, that aren't custom built web apps. And I feel like that's something that I've seen recently or just felt recently is I'm getting web app fatigue. There's so many new little demos and there's so many new little apps that it's like hard for me to keep up with. And my bookmarks tab can only take so much. So I think meeting people where they're at, Cursor's doing this with Cursor and Slack, Claude's doing this on GitHub. Like if you can build these asynchronous agents that meet these users where they're at, they can go and kick off workflows. They can check in on things. I think that's dramatically important. And that's not going anywhere in my eyes, at least for the next 2 years.
Let's see what everyone else says about the human element.
In some ways, the biggest thing I notice is with other people. It's been interesting seeing one of my friends who's a designer and he's just like, okay, I'm just going to work with Cursor and see what happens. And just like keep spitting out new websites like every day, basically. And they're on the path to becoming something that he wants, but he'll hit a point of like working on it for a day and then getting somewhere. And it's like, it really expresses like a feeling and a thing. And I found that really impressive. And similar, another friend who used to be a programmer, but like doesn't actually want to look at a text editor and like program again. He's like kind of doing the same thing for like a local project that he's building. And I think just like seeing this, the tip of empowerment of people and this technology is pretty amazing to be like, you really don't need to be a programmer anymore. But if you have like a little bit of knowledge in and around, like obviously these people both have worked with technology before, so they kind of know how to say the right things. But it is really to the point of like, you're able to express yourself through this. It's like almost a new medium, it feels like. So in some ways, like, I think that's been the most impressive, like for me on the day to day, like, sure. I mean, it's reducing like the amount of time and work and stuff that I would do. The amount of times I touch my keyboard is just so little now, like actually. but there's still a lot of like thought and other stuff. And I think that's maybe the thing is like learning how to articulate yourself in a way that the AI can understand and being sufficiently detailed is the most important thing. It's not about anything else at this point, or it'll get to the point where it's not. Maybe it's not today, but yeah, I don't know.
I've got really deep into what, I mean, people are calling vibe coding. And as a longtime developer, I mean, 25 plus years of doing development, I didn't really get it at first. And I think, I mean, one of the big things of this product zine that we're launching next week was literally, quote, vibe coded. I mean, and I'm not a front end developer by trade. I mean, I've done it in the past, but it's not in the last 10 years really. But I was able to build this app in the last month purely with Claude Code, Klein, some of the tools like that, and learn so much from that whole side. It was just insane. I mean, like it was, people are, I mean, underestimate how quickly you can really move. But the downside is it can really get lost, and it's great at 0 to 1, but it's not as good at iteration. So I mean, learning the right tool for the job helps. And I think, but also learning the right model for the job. Where sometimes I'd get stuck, especially like on a React issue or something like that. And one of the things also is some of the models do have a knowledge of different technologies better. Some have a different design sense. I think, I mean, try everything. I mean, get a feel for, some people are like, oh, the IDE is dying and this and that. And it's like, no, I mean, use the right tool, use them all. I mean, I think but also there's some people that just don't get the agent, like the Claude Code, and now there's like Gemini CLI, like treat it as its own thing. Like it's something new. It's a new paradigm. It's literally like going old school IRC or like chat session where it's like, think of there's somebody somewhere else that is building this code for you and you have to talk it through with them. And it's like, ignore that there's even an IDE there is the way to really think about it. And that really works for me. And it's like, you end up getting this collaborative feeling with it that I'd never had before in my career. I mean, it's literally like a virtual team. And with it be able to spin off multiple agents and stuff like that. But it's also, this is the worst it's ever going to be. So I'm excited to see what the next 6 months holds.
You've got to, first of all, put the human first. You've got to think of who you're trying to market to or use AI to reach or connect with. And you have to consider the human connection first, and then you have to use AI under that framework, under that lens. So you have to consider whether your use of an AI tool is actually making that human connection to your customers or prospects closer, or whether it's actually distancing. And so I would say, forget the AI tool at the start of a project or undertaking. Consider the human aspect, the human connection, then apply the AI tool. And then throughout the process, consider, is this becoming closer to my customers? Is it becoming more connected and more congruent and more authentic? And that's really the thing I would suggest is the most important thing.
The last year made me a bit more optimistic, seeing how humans are still kind of like the bottleneck. And I see that in the next 5-10 years, we'll still be very relevant for the workforce. I think it will look very much different, but working with these tools just shows you that you still need to be there, lead the agents into a direction. People push me to use Claude Code and Gemini CLI, all of those neat tools. And because there is massive hype around it, I don't know what am I missing. Like, because I don't see it. My main difficulty with the paper tasks is that, like, the way I work with agents, I still need to be there. I still need to, like, I might not actually read the code. There are some things that are completely, fully vibe coded, but I still need to kind of like test it. Q&A it, you know, like make sure it works, see the results. I think the human is still the bottleneck. And I think the next challenge will be to solve the actual feedback loop for the agent to see if it achieved its goal.
Everybody knows this, but you know what? Everybody says, like, you gotta listen to your customers, find a customer, stuff like that. It is absolutely true. I 100% believe this. If you trust the process and you keep going and going, you will eventually hit something. There are certain ways you can do to maximize the probability to do that. But yeah, I would say, like, just try everything to filter out the signals and noise and trust the process. I don't know how else to say it, because like if you ask me if we were doing now what we were doing like a year ago, and you told me like that's what I was doing, I would be like, I did not see that coming. And the only way that was able to happen was because we just kept at it, and we just made sure that we focused on customers. Forget the news, forget the noise, forget appealing to VCs. Just find 1, 2, 3 people who are willing to stick by you and actually use your product, even when it's shit. Because eventually, if you keep working with them, you will find something, and it will build up and grow into something. You got to find people that love your product, and you got to work with them.
I went down the agent rabbit hole and started to reflect on what that means from a human perspective, even in the word agency, to think about the human analogy around what does that mean in your life. And so thinking about when you have systems and we're giving some form of control over to them, what does that really mean? So that's what I used to think about the last year, as far as it wasn't a particular tool per se, but just using my own brain as a tool and thinking about literally cognitive functioning as tools. I think you can have mental models that we use as tools if you want to go like a little bit more abstract. I think about tool use as literally my brain going, not necessarily always application-based functions and tool calling, but also how do I think about something before I even architect a solution, in working with others to say, hey, at this stage of the experience that we're designing, does it make sense that we have complete agency there? Is it let it go and we don't need human in the loop to sign off on anything? Or is it, oh no, if this actually is wrong and it hallucinates at the wrong moment or something goes wrong here, how do we recover from that error?
Well, that year was absolutely insane. The AI space moves faster than ever, and it's only going to accelerate. So I hate to put you on the spot like this, but I really like to know 1, maybe 2 of your predictions for the next year. What's going to happen in the AI space that is going to blow people's minds?
I think the one that's one of the most interesting to me and people don't talk enough about is the price of intelligence really is going to zero. And I predict that it will actually go to zero. We saw with Apple's SDK now that you can just use the on-device LLM. And I think local models are going to get good enough to the point where you can have incredible AI experiences using consumer hardware without actually having to hit any APIs. And when that happens, like, you can do a whole range of things. Every website can be AI enabled. Intelligence will be everywhere. And this general intelligence explosion, I think, can benefit a lot of people. And I'm curious to see how that all plays out. And I think the people that are building apps now, basically not worrying about their inference bill, are the ones that are going to win. The ones that are like, oh, you only get 200 credits a month. Plan for the future. Inference costs are going to go dramatically down. I think that's the one that's the most obvious for me.
I would say mine is probably going to be, I think we, being the open source community, are going to solve the orchestration issue. I think we're going to be able to figure out a very lightweight, low overhead way to route requests to a model given the context of that request. And that will allow more specialized tasks to be done by the highly specialized models. And I've been preaching on this for a while, but seeing all of the innovations like Augment Toolkit or Transformer Lab and the ability for people to train their own models on their own data is going to cause a proliferation of open source models. And with those models, even though they can do a specific task, how do we make sure that the right task gets ended up there? Whether it's hosting on your machine or hosting on the cloud somewhere, we still need to go from A to B. And that problem hasn't really been solved yet, but I think there's enough smart people working on it that that's going to be in. I also think we're going to start getting more home robotics. I don't think humanoids are going to be quite yet. I think we're still a few years away from that. But like, I ordered the Richie Mini from Hugging Face. It's going to be just a little robot sitting on my desk. There's been tools like what Seed Studios produced to get little cameras with built-in intelligence. And with the cost of intelligence going down, with the proliferation of open source models, they're going to be much more enabled with these physical devices. We were early days with the O1, didn't quite pan out the way we were hoping. Still open source, people can check it out and play with it. But I do think we're going to start seeing a lot more of that this year.
Brilliant prediction. Robots are definitely coming. I'm curious to see when. And I think AI only makes robot development faster. So I'm excited for the future. I'm so optimistic on the next 5 years. No one can tell me otherwise.
For everyone still watching, I just wanted to say thank you. thank you for the past year. Thank you for sticking along this journey and supporting me throughout it. I'm extremely grateful that I'm able to have these conversations every week. I get to talk to people about a topic that I'm very passionate about, and they are equally, if not more passionate about, and I wouldn't get to do that otherwise. There's people who just wouldn't have the opportunity to talk to if it wasn't for an audience watching. So thank you very much. I wanted to reiterate really quickly the purpose of the show, why I'm doing it in the first place. I think it's extremely important that we democratize and decentralize the benefits of AI. The thought of it being centralized in the hands of a few really could lead to a bad outcome. So by teaching people about how they can leverage these systems and these tools to become more productive and more competitive is very important. From small businesses who I worry are going to be wiped out by these massive corporations that can just keep throwing money at the AI wall until they find a tool that fits, where the small business have to be a lot more careful and considerate with how they use tools. We're able to distill down a lot of that decision making into a 45-minute episode. And people who are worried about job displacement, what skills do they learn? If you're able to take something you're passionate about and apply AI to it, you're probably going to be okay. But a lot of people just didn't know that's possible. When I teach someone how to use ChatGPT for the first time, they get it's a mind-blowing moment for them. They just didn't know what was possible. And I just want to make sure that we educate, inform, and help spread this wonderful capability to as many people as possible. So thank you for allowing me to do this. Thank you for allowing me to have my little microphone. I do intend on growing this. For season 2, for year 2 of the show, I want to try new different formats, try to get bigger guests on, and that's where I could use your support. If you can just share the episode, hit the subscribe button, do all those things YouTube wants to do. The vanity metrics that come along with that, subscriber count doesn't really matter, but people who are looking for what podcasts they should spend their interview budget on, they do care about that. So I would like to grow this to try to bring on a continually high quality caliber of guests, because I've been so fortunate with the guests I've come on. If you look back at the guest list, mind-blowing to me. Like, they're just such genuinely good people who are so bright and knowledgeable, and they share an hour of their time to be able to record and spread the knowledge to you. So any support would be greatly appreciated. Now we just qualify for YouTube membership. So if you're in the financial position to do so, check out the membership. We have a Patreon. I don't know how I'm doing on Patreon, but I'll figure out something to make it worth your while. We're also getting our first sponsor. So the next 3 months, it's going to be announced next week, are going to be our first sponsored episode. I've been approached by multiple people about sponsorship, and I only want to do it for tools that I genuinely believe in. And I think you're going to be really happy with this one. So tune in for that. If you're a company looking to sponsor a podcast, reach out, let me know, but ideally you're open source. If not, I'll still have the conversation, but you better be doing some good. If you want to hang out more, I have a Discord for tool use, and actually a bunch of the old guests are on there, and they're more than willing to share information about their topics. So if you watch an episode and have a question, check out the Discord. There's a lot of good stuff. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm not as active as I used to be, but I still try to put out alpha to make sure that I distribute the knowledge that I gain. I'm not looking to make any money off of tool use. I have a day job that I'm very happy with. So every dollar that comes in from these different channels goes right back into the show. I've got a great editor who's going to do some good stuff to hopefully bring up the production quality, because I want to make this as enjoyable an experience for the viewer as possible, or the listener if you're on Spotify. I think that's it. Thank you so much. I'll see you next week.